And greetings. Happy Friday. It is good to be back home. And with the weather here in central Iowa, it's like I never left Dallas, man. I got the windows down. I busted out the polo shirt on February the 28th. Cannot complain, and it's always good to see my guys. Aaron McIntyre, how are you, brother?
Doing well. Doing well.
And then, Todd, what's up?
You know.
The same thing that always is. The same thing that always is. We're going to be joined by our good friend, fellow Iowan, now turned Texan and colleague, Jill Savage, here in just a moment on the Deace Group. Folks, we are brought to you by our friends over at Farmer Bill's. If you love beef jerky, and I do, you know the market, though, can be filled with all kinds of artificials and sugars, stuff that could be regarded as ultra-processed food. That's why I got to tell you about something we discovered late last year. It's called Biltong. We discovered it through our friends over at Farmer Bill's. It's a meat snack originating from South Africa that America is just now discovering. It's a traditionally air-dried meat snack, though, without the sugar, soy, and nitrates, and it's the perfect snack if you want quick, easy, healthy, lean protein, and it's absolutely delicious. All right. So get the bestseller bundle right now. Get the bestseller bundle. It also includes, by the way, a magnesium tallow balm and a toning balm that you can use for skincare and more. So, I mean, this stuff, I don't know anything about that because I'm a guy, but I do know a lot about meat. And that stuff is very, very good. All right, so go to farmerbillsprovisions.com. Farmer Bills Provisions, so bills and provisions, plural. Farmerbillsprovisions.com. Use the promo code STEVE to get 10% off. Again, promo code STEVE to get 10% off at farmerbillsprovisions.com. All right, for Feedback Friday, guys, I may have one of the greatest pieces of feedback this show has ever received to lead it off next hour. I'm not playing either. This isn't tongue-in-cheek. I'm setting you guys up. This is freaking awesome, this piece of feedback I'm going to lead off with next hour. So you do not want to miss it. I think the audience is going to find it pretty cool as well. But let's begin on a Friday, as we always do, with the Deace Group. Good to see you again, Jill. It's been 12 hours. It's time for your weekly look at the week that was. And it begins, as it always does, with issue 1. Bleep. Lord Nefarious says.
I felt absolutely infuriated getting this email with a demand within 48 hours to provide a response on what I did within the last week.
My show had value, and that what I was doing had value.
The member will be in violation of House Rule 401, Part 11. The member will not be able to cast a vote or speak on the floor until the member has come back into compliance with House Rule 401, Part 11.
This is really amazing that the U.S. is now on record in the United Nations on the side of North Korea and Russia.
We can't let them deport the millions of families. If you look at the food that's on your table, think about who picked it.
Elon Musk, we need to X him, and by X I mean formerly known as assassination.
What's wrong with the Democratic Party? What's wrong is our country's being stole by fascists and Nazis.
No, I'm not going to apologize.
The most ironic thing is they don't care about it, and they don't care about it while wearing big fat crosses around their necks.
Yes.
Well,
yes. These people are just idiots. I really, I'm at the point where it's become really hard to have an intellectual debate with any of these people because the level of stupidity that they are displaying every single day is frankly embarrassing.
I don't give a about Trump. I'm not here to talk about Trump. I'm tired of hearing Trump. He needs the MAGA hat shoved right up his ass.
We need to also teach white people Ubuntu. It's not in their nature. We need to teach them. We can't say, guys, Ubuntu, come on. Don't you get it? No, they don't get it. They will never get it. They're not the same level of human beings we are.
That's essentially that last video is progressivism, the spirit of, and that's progressivism in a nutshell right there. That's the driving force of all leftist theology. Is that they are better than you, whether it's in any form, any ism, communism, socialism, statism, progressivism, of all leftist theology, it always ends up believing we are the people you've been waiting for. It believes that every single time. And that's why Ronald Reagan famously coined the phrase, one of the most loathsome and fearful phrases in all the English language is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. All right, let's get to the first question. Jill, ladies first. What was the worst form of wickedness that you just saw?
I don't know what's going on, Steve. You were just down here in Dallas. You, me, and Matthew Peterson on the mandate. We were all very optimistic.
Well, first of all, let me just say it was good that we did the mandate on Wednesday and not on Thursday. Can I get a witness on that? Huh? Anybody?
Yes.
Is this on?
Absolutely.
All right, we picked the right day to do that. Anyway, continue your point. Go ahead. Yes.
I think I'm going to continue this optimism. Usually I am completely at a loss for words after what Aaron throws at us, that it's something that I would rather go about my weekend without having seen, right? Every time I come on the Deace Group, I'm so excited. And then I watch, Aaron's montage here. This wasn't that bad this week, you guys. It could have been a lot worse, I feel like, because I think that there's a theme here, right? You go through and sure, you have the deportations and, where are you going to get your food? The illegals line. We've heard that before. And then people are going after Trump and, okay, try something new. Elon is now on the chopping block. They would rather not have to deal with him. So whether it's the Doge emails or just, completely taking him out of the picture. Okay, you know what? What does this say, though? What does the encapsulation of this week's montage for Bleep Lord Nefarious says is they're trying to throw whatever they can out here because the narratives just aren't sticking anymore like they used to. And I think that is going to be my sign of optimism for the entire weekend, that I've never come on the show before and actually left uplifted after a Bleep Lord Nefarious says.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's springtime for Hitler.
Yeah.
Tim Walz is like, yeah. All right, there you go. Wow. Well, I think we need balance.
It could be way worse.
Well, that's kind of been a Republican Party mantra for the last 4 decades. But I hear you. All right, I think we need balance in the force, Todd. I'll go to you next.
I don't think Jill is wrong, but I think we're looking at the same reality, and she just took a glasses half full. I'm going to give you glasses half empty. The worst of the week is Joy Reid there, and it's emblematic of a lot of the other stuff you see there from.
It's a good thing you added there. Because essentially Joy Reid could just been an evergreen for the last 10 years, right? We could just do this every week with her. Just put Joy Reid, literally make her the montage every week for the last decade, right?
The same from our Somali friend from the state of Minnesota.
Our sister in Somalia.
Yes.
Yes, indeed, yes.
Those tears, that's not an act. That's real. And she did. She thought she was giving something of value. This was a religious calling for her. Yep. But here's what's important to understand, because I was already thinking about what I was going to say, and then the very next scene, Aaron puts it up there anyways. The very next scene is the flip side of the Joy Reid coin. It's what happened in Maine, where a Republican woman said, no, there's such a thing as boys and girls, and they should have their own sports. And she gets censured and is not allowed to vote. Joy Reid, just a week ago, covering that news, would be like, Hercules! They're insane. And this is why I'm glasses half empty, and it's sad. This is not politics as usual, where people learn lessons and pivot and are all ultimately Americans at some level and want to have this thing succeed on some level. No, they aren't going to learn. And they're also not going anywhere. So yes, there's a lot of soundtrack, laugh track stuff, but they hate themselves. They hate this country. They hate us. And while they are here in enough mass, that's something that just does not always come with a laugh track. There will be much pain. There's much suffering. This is why I said when I testified at the Iowa Capitol earlier this week, and a huge victory in Iowa, enormous victory. Pulling, as Steve wrote a column about it, gender identity has been stripped out, setting the tone for things to come. This is so important. But when two people from the left spoke before me back to back, and one of them just said, "This is just so hateful, and all we want is to live our authentic selves, and we want to be left alone." Joy Reid's, I went up there and I said, "They're lying to you. They have no intention of leaving you alone." And I used my own family's experience. We stood up for gender in sports, and we said no porn in the schools. And my children were were harassed so much within their school district that they were told by the principal, "Well, we just can't keep suspending everyone. They hate you. They're coming after you." That's a reality, and we can't deport them. So I just think that...
I mean, it was so bad you had to go to Protestant school.
Yes, I'm now
where you could
a
get an
refugee.
acceptable baseline level of hate.
Now I'm a refugee there. But we have to be realistic about that. What you saw with people like Joy Reid. There's a lot of them. The Capitol was full of them. Now they just got utterly routed, but they're among us, and they plan on causing mayhem, and that's a very, very real thing.
Amen. I think I can bridge you two's positions, but let's go to Aaron first. Don't want to shortchange him. After all, he is the architect of what you just witnessed.
I think the worst of the worst is probably Dana Bash lamenting some procedural vote at the United Nations and how this puts us on the same side as Russia and North Korea. If I'm not mistaken, CNN broadcasts from what state? New York, right?
New York and Georgia.
New York and Georgia,
yeah,
but I think
but
primarily
mostly
it's New York.
Yeah.
So what does New York have in common, or even goes beyond North Korea and Russia? Oh, that would be baby killing. So sounds like your state there has been on the same side as North Korea and Russia for a lot longer and in more ways than you thought there, Dana. So there's that.
Let's go back to bridging between you two, because I think you actually guys are just two sides of the same coin.
I agree.
All right. Your glass half empty is, even at this moment, they are demonstrating and confirming what we were suspecting on our show, especially for many years, that this was a religion, that this was a cult, that there was going to be no way to dissuade them out of this. There was going to be no return to normalcy on the other side. That the traditional duopolistic relationship between the two parties, one is right of center, the other one's left of center. One goes too far one way, the people vote one way to kind of move them back to the center. The other one goes the same thing the other way. That dynamic we all grew up with, that's dead, gone. Because the social compact is dead and gone. We are with a worldview we cannot share a culture with, right? Okay, all right, and they are just reminding us of this, as you're right, as you're right to point out. But Jill, I would say that also leads to your optimism, because what you're seeing is, we've had an entire month of the Trump presidency, and there has not been a rake stepped on until yesterday. Yesterday was the first rake step that, frankly, we kind of saw these guys like almost weekly during the first term. Yesterday's kind of debacled rake steps. Okay.
I think that's good.
And we went an entire month of more than a month, because he came into office January 20th. We went almost 6 weeks without any rake steps, really, until yesterday. And when you're on it, what that proves is it proves the proof of concept of what happened in Florida, what happened in our home state of Iowa, and what's still happening in those places. It proves that proof of concept can be extended nationally to some degree. There's limitations nationally because of the balkanization is more acute nationally than it is in any individual state. But it does demonstrate, again, if we are on message, and we are focused on issues, and we are framing those as issues that are what's best for the American people, we force them then to do, Todd, what you just were like, it's depressing to watch. And we force them, though, to expose that to the American people. This isn't about inclusion. This is about putting creeps that any other previous generation would have long ago had forcibly installed into an insane asylum, if not arrested, and putting them right there in the locker room with your girls, and right there in reading stories to your kids in the public library. We are forcing them to remove the language by which they have deceived much of our countrymen, and just be flat out honest about what it is they are and who it is they are. And so for that, Jill, I share your optimism. But then I also share your pessimism, Todd, just because I'm supposed to love my neighbor as I love myself. Therefore, by the grace of God, go I. These are very broken people.
They're orcs.
Yes. And Jesus died for them too.
Yeah.
And if they're not if many of them are not at the stage already of, we have no king but Caesar, move on, we don't want to hear this, and Jesus kicks the dust off his sandals, if many of them are not already there, they are getting dangerously close to that level of place. And that's sad for them.
Yes.
Because eternity is a lot longer than history is. All right, let's get to the exit question. If I remember where it is. Here it is. Exit question. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the odds Jill will ever be sexually harassed by Lindsey Graham. And 10 being the odds Lindsey Graham is a fraudulent traitor, also living a double life as a closeted homosexual. And it's a shame that a Bible Belt state like South Carolina continues to represent them in the United States Senate. Rank this week's level of total depravity, Todd.
You thought Joe was happy before that question.
See, this is actually me just, you know what, let's get rid of the innuendo and let's just keep it clean. And,
go.
And I'm just, that was me doing that.
Yeah, sure it was.
It was. I got rid of all the innuendo, all the lurid stuff that, people complain about. I just, okay, we'll get rid of all that and just state it matter-of-factly. That's me trying to be more priestly. No.
It's still a 10.
Okay. Jill?
1, my name has been added to the Lindsey Graham question. That's like a personal achievement level
Yes.
that is unlocked.
Maybe I'll just make that the question every single week. We'll just have this exact same question every single week. Go ahead.
And then you combine it with that. At this point in time, last week, I was meeting with friend of the show, Rachel Semmel, now Rachel Cawley. She was taking us around the Eisenhower building and the White House. Well, when Rachel and I were walking back from the White House with a couple of guys that were with us, who do we pass by but one Lindsey Graham?
Of course.
Who goes, "Hi, ladies," and just keeps walking. And the dudes that were with us go, "He didn't even turn around.
He could be less interested."
And Rachel goes, "He could not be less interested." Rachel goes, "He has no idea who we are, and he doesn't care."
No.
So with all of this might be the best day of my life here on the show, ever on the Deace Group. This might be it.
In a way, you've been
what?
canonized, show canonized in a way. Yes.
It's going to be a 3.
Wow. It's going to be a 3.
Yeah, it's good.
It's going to be a 3.
It's going to be a 3.
Right now, Paul Alexander is somewhere in the bowels of New York City texting me. What's your number? What's your number? What's your number? Aaron, go ahead.
I'm at an 8 just because of the last clip alone.
I hear you. All right, let's get to issue 2. Corporate media's discrediting is now complete.
CNN anchor Joseph Goebbels announced his newest book this week, Original Sin, President Biden's Decline, Its Cover-Up, and His Disastrous Choice to Run Again. Here is Goebbels back in 2020.
Very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable
You are
to watch somebody on stage
that's so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
Well, when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter.
Goebbels' gaslighting was so bad, fellow CNN co-worker Potato had this to say this morning, quote, "What happens when irresponsible media personalities hype up a conspiracy theory only to see it unravel before their eyes? We're finding out now." Okay, Potato wasn't talking about this story, but he might as well have been.
I want to take everybody back to this headline from Oliver Darcy, by the way, who actually, I believe, worked here at the Blaze in its original iteration, if I remember right. Okay. And now he is essentially, I mean, is that, what would he be? Brian Stelter, the JV team of the JV version of Brian Stelter for CNN?
He is now.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a story that Oliver Darcy wrote on June 25th of last year. You guys remember what happened on June 26th of last year?
Is that the assassination attempt?
No, that was July 13th.
That was the debate, wasn't it?
That was the debate. Hard to believe all this stuff happened in that short amount of time. Yeah. July 3rd. Dude, we aged like a decade in like 3 weeks last summer as a country. All right. July 13th is when they tried to murder Trump. June 26th was that earliest debate of all time. All right. So this is the headline that CNN's Oliver Darcy puts on a story on June the 25th of last year. Quote, "Right-wing media figures are desperately pushing conspiracy theories about Biden ahead of the debate. And it's all about his cognitive ability and functionality." And then 24 hours later, in front of about 80 million people. Joe Biden went out there, and what did he demonstrate? That. And then we're all sitting there on the Blaze post-debate panel, watching in real time as suddenly John King and everybody on CNN is trying to get Joe Biden removed from the presidency. 24 hours after this was the headline story on their website. Right-wing media figures are desperately pushing conspiracy theories about Biden ahead of the debate. So, Todd, I know Jake Tapper is a particular a bee in your bonnet, because for many years he was kind of considered the acceptable mainstream guy. I mean, I remember being on the Cruz campaign. He was one of the few mainstream media guys that Ted would go out of his way to entertain and talk to, and thought we could get a fair shake out of him. Okay, and you have, you were calling BS on that the entire time. Okay, so I know you will do a poor job of feeling vindicated, but try to, at least for a few minutes, and just give us your analysis of this. This isn't even a lack of self-awareness from no. This is sociopathic. Yes. This is beyond a lack of self-awareness. This is flat out sociopathic, this behavior.
Yeah, and I was around it a lot in 12 years at the Register. So yeah, I know the one who comes across as not constantly, hysterically blue hair, tranny, yapping, but is the smug one who utilizes all those two to get what he wants accomplished, and is often leading all the talking points. That's Jake Tapper. And it's been obvious for a very long time. And Aaron, you and I are mind melding, because as with Joy Reid, and instantly I'm thinking I'm going to bring up the main thing as the flip side, and there you are, Aaron. That the last scene of your montage that Steve resonated with you so much about. That's who they are. The who's that gentleman from wherever he was? That's Jake Tapper, even though he's white. The same thing. I'm just better than you. There is nothing you can tell me, say to me. This is about you're the other, and I'm the good guy. It is sociopathic, and this needs to be understood. And yes, we keep stripping away layers now with use. We're wondering, how do these places even survive? Now we know. So you said money, but pharma money has lifted these things up. Mm-hmm. We need to not just it. This just they can't really exist. And that'd be okay with us, quite frankly, at this point. They are enemies of the state. Jake Tapper is an enemy of the truth. He's an enemy of decency. He's a very, very bad person. And honestly, I almost have to he's doing this in broad day, knowing obviously. It's not a matter of lack of self-awareness. Oh, he knows.
Yeah,
he knows.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it? And to that extent, for a very long time, I know Trump won, but in terms of the media, Joy Reid got let go. Let's test that fair with Jake Tapper. Whatever it takes, making sure that guy doesn't have a job at the end of the day. It should be a goal.
Aaron,
have you done any research on cable news ratings recently?
Not recently. Not since 24.
How many primetime viewers do you think MSNBC has in the key 25 to 54 demographic? Primetime.
I'm going to guess it's less than 500,000.
111,000.
Holy crap.
CNN, it's 122,000. Daytime viewership for MSNBC in that same demographic would not even fill Michigan Stadium 70% full.
So just so our audience understands what that means, on a day-to-day basis, this show has more people watching, listening, and tuning in than the daytime parts on a CNN and an MSNBC, and then the really big shows, the Megyn Kellys, Glenn Becks, Charlie Kirks, they would beat their primetime lineup easily.
But there's still all the clips, and they're on Twitter, and they do have influence for that reason. And this is why I'm saying they have to be taken out. We can laugh and just say they're weak and they don't matter. But I think it is time to absolutely kneecap. I asked Josh Hammer once about this as it applies to polling. Why do we not actually go after them legally for fraud?
Mm-hmm. Like Trump threatening to sue Ann Seltzer, for example.
It's the same here. Yeah. You're lying as a journalist over and over and over again about multiple issues. We see you. You're telling us it's fraudulent. Make them pay. It would be justice to do it. It's not petty. Make them pay.
Jill, you get the last word.
Yeah, I actually think that I would be surprised if we don't see somebody go after them, just the way that this has kind of been
CNN
taking a turn in
was
the
just
narrative.
in court here at the end of the year, losing their rear end. But
exactly.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that we go back to the first clip of Joy Reid where she's saying, oh, I have value. My show has value, right? This is what these people truly believe, like we've discussed. But Jake Tapper doesn't care, right? He knows that he's lying to the people. That's what he wants to be doing. He just wants to go through now and get the money from the book deal. But what are we seeing right now as a change in the White House? The press pool, we had our very own Blaze Media guy out there, Chris Bedford. He represented Blaze Media. He was the first person from the company to be in the White House press pool, and he did so this week on Wednesday, and he was in the cabinet meeting and everything. Okay, you don't like the MAGA influencers, maybe some people in the audience with the whole, Pam Bondi stuff yesterday. That's fine. I see that.
That's not all of our alternative media, though. Yeah.
But it wasn't. But what happened was the White House chose to give information to the alternative media before legacy media, right? So things are shifting right now. And if it's as bad as it is right now with CNN, what is going to happen in the future? They can see that things are not going to be as easy for them. Information is no longer just going to be handed to them. Mm-hmm. If their ratings are bad right now, and they're not just the chosen ones going forward, I mean, how long are they even viable as a network? That's what we have to look forward to.
I agree. And I think we need to learn from their mistakes and not create counters to that. I think there's a place for people. I mean, on some level, it's not exclusively what I do, but I don't post on social media to be a non-influencer. I want my social media posts to have influence, but the basis of what I do is broadcasting, not social media influencer. But if we're gonna create a counter ecosystem somewhere, we have to have people that it's okay to elevate them because they just want the truth. And the answer to CNN is not let's hand the Epstein files, in a binder to a bunch of people that were good to us. That's a very solemn, serious thing. There are women walking the earth right now whose souls were literally ripped from them on that island. That needs to be a press conference with the director of the FBI and/or the Attorney General, maybe even more so her as a woman. And if you want to elevate the people that are good to you, I'm all for that. Patronage in politics is a good thing. Mm-hmm. Okay? Then here's what you do. Those exact same people that were there yesterday, you give them like an exclusive scoop. Right? Instead of leaking something to your favorite reporter at MSNBC or CNN like the other side does, you leak it to your favorite social media influencer, you let them have the scoop. But the actual files and those sorts of things should have been a press conference with the seal of Attorney General, Federal Bureau of Investigation. I mean, this is maybe the worst human trafficking scandal in American history. And just to pawn it off as a stunt was a terrible idea. And it's kind of the kind of thing we would expect the other side to do. Everybody's a racist, ha 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 ha. Don't do that. Don't do that. Exit question. Is there anybody or anything within corporate media that you still trust? Jill?
No. Every time you think that there's even going to be a small win, that you can just have something little, they always let you down every single time. No, there's nothing in legacy media that you can trust anymore.
I would have said this time last year, or maybe a little bit before that, Catherine Herridge at CBS, but they even got rid of her too.
Yeah.
She gone.
She's got to work with us now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah. Todd?
Nope. No.
We keep coming to the same conclusion, whether it's the chart from yesterday, whether it's the crazy behavior that's gone on in our legislature for the last week and a half, whether it's this story talking about the media. These are just not cultures that can live together. And the longer we force them to, the more likely this is going to end very, very poorly.
Yeah.
They just can't. They just, there's nothing in common other than we're spending the same money. There's nothing else. There's nothing else in common there other than we're spending the same money.
Too much concern. You either think journalism is a widget, you're selling widgets, or it's constant propaganda. And those two things constantly are in tension of the truth. Got to more to the truth.
All right, when we come back, it's official. Vivek is running for governor. A unique opportunity to merge a couple of camps on the right and see if they can work together or not. Stay tuned. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, we are brought to you by our friends over at Preborn, the outstanding pro-life ministry and their network of clinics. They shine a light into the darkness by offering free services to women who are considering the murder of their child, including the abortion reversal pill, by the way. But Preborn reaches into the hearts of the babies and their moms. And they do this with compassion, but with confrontation. They confront moms with the heartbeat of their child so that they know that's, you're not the one person on earth that has two hearts. It's not yours. No, that's not your body, your choice. That's another body. No, that's not an unviable tissue mass. In any walk of life, heartbeat would be something that would signify life. And then if mom chooses life, they go from truth to grace. And they are there with prenatal, postnatal care, sometimes for up to 2 years after the baby's born, even really practical things, formula if needed, car seats, etc. And by the way, all this stuff they do for moms and their babies, it's all free to the mom and the baby. But none of it is actually free. And that's where we come in. And you guys have been so generous here on The Blaze. And we just can't say enough good things about you guys. A great way to love your neighbors, you love yourself. Make a tax-deductible donation today to our friends over at Preborn. Go to preborn.com/Steve. That's preborn.com/Steve. Or you can dial pound 250, say the keyword baby on your mobile phone. If you're watching right now, you see the QR code. You can just scan that if you want. Or just go to preborn.com/Steve. All right, let's welcome back in our good friend, fellow Iowan colleague, Jill Savage here, as we march on with your weekly look at the week that was. Issue 3, Vivek makes it official. He's running for governor.
Vivek Ramaswamy made it official this week.
President Trump is reviving our conviction in America. We require a leader here at home who will revive our conviction in Ohio. I am honored to announce my candidacy to serve as the next governor of the state of Ohio. I will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country to start and grow a new business. I will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country to raise a young family. I'll lead Ohio to be the top state in the country where our kids get a world-class education in math, reading, writing, critical thinking, and physical education. I will lead Ohio to be the top state in the country where we give our kids the toolkit to think of themselves not as victims, but as victors in a competitive global economy.
So here is why I picked this topic. It's not to relitigate the last primary, all right? For the most part, yesterday's events notwithstanding, this is the most unified since July 13th of last year. This is the most unity we have seen on the right in my career, collectively. And for the most part, Trump's back on message this morning, welcoming Zelensky, looking at him right to his face and saying this war has to come to an end. Enough people have died right there in front of the media. Right. So for the most part, I think, unless you really had your heart set on Ron DeSantis, and I get that. I mean, I supported him in the primary, and you can't let that go. That's a very small, very, very small sliver of people. Overwhelmingly, the right is very unified and happy with the direction in which things are going. We all agree to that to some degree right now for the most part?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's not about relitigating the last primary, but it is about resetting it. Because I emceed Vivek Ramaswamy's first presidential event in Iowa. And it was one of the most impressive displays of detail and knowledge on the issues I have ever seen. And keep this in mind, I've been doing presidential cycles in Iowa for a couple times. Done this before. All right. Done this with people. I've done this with Herman Cain and Ron DeSantis and Mike Huckabee and Mitt Romney. I've done it with them all. Donald Trump. I've done it with them all.
Herman Cain. What was his tax plan again? Wow.
555.
No, wasn't it 999?
Well, maybe it was 999.
I think it was 999. Right. All right. And remember Michelle Bachmann said, "You turn it the other way, it goes 666." Remember that? I did it. I did the paces with her too. I've done this many times. And so when I say it's among the most impressive displays, do you guys remember? It was in January of 23, and I came in here the next morning just raving about how impressive this guy's knowledge of the issues were, right? And then Trump got indicted, and he completely reinvented himself. And it went from talking seriously about issues to essentially becoming a construct of if social media influencers were poured into and if you went to Grok 3 and said, "Hey, Grok, show me a candidate running for office if social media influencers were made into a candidate," it would be Vivek Ramaswamy from about April of 23 to the rest of his candidacy. Fair? Okay, that's fair too. And these are groups that, from the last few years, are often at odds. All right, you kind of have the Daniel Horowitz wing. It's got, and we got to get serious about policy. And so that was Vivek the first few months he ran. And then there's like the Jack Posobiec wing, where it's about engagement and you got to move numbers on social media because that's where people are at. And if it doesn't click and trend on social media, it doesn't matter. And so Vivek represented both of these camps somehow in the exact same caucus cycle here in Iowa. All right. And so I am fascinated to see, because he'll get his chance at executive leadership before, say, President Vance would. Ron DeSantis is not social media guy, influencer guy at all. I think we all know that, right? To his own detriment sometimes. So he's not the merger of these two entities. JD comes from kind of both of these camps. Vivek is trying to represent both of these camps. So I am fascinated by this candidacy to see if this is possible with a way forward to the right. Is it possible to find a place where the Daniel Horowitz wing and the Jack Posobiec wing could actually come together and govern? Because cracking that Rubik's Cube, guys, may go a long ways to determine how much of a future the right has in, saving America at this point. Because these are the two camps that we have. Can they merge together? So with that, that's the reason I picked this as a topic. With that, Jill, your thoughts on what I just said and Vivek as a candidate.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly hope that he can merge these two. I do agree with you that he would be the one guy that I think is the most intriguing to put these two together. What I look at Vivek, his clear strength is messaging, right? He can do this better than almost anyone on the right. And it happens to be one of the biggest Achilles heels that Republicans have. So if he is able to get in there and actually become governor, well, you're going to need that as a country because it's not going to be DeSantis for much longer unless it's the other one, his wife. But the way that we look at it right now, you need somebody that is going to be pushing the country forward in right-leaning messaging. And Vivek is in a very unique position that he has that as his absolute top skill set. Can he go through, though? Can he bring the Daniel Horowitzes and the Jack Posobiecs together? I mean, that is such a far-ranging group of people.
Because if we can't, Jill, we probably are incapable of governing the country long term. We probably can't do it. Then the MAGA movement is just the Tea Party movement, which is something that we talk about every so often here on this show. So you have to find something that is lasting, that is going to make it above this. Now, I do see like the MAGA youth movement. There's a lot of the young kids that are getting more involved. Elon Musk even is bringing in a new level of excitement and eyeballs on issues that have the young kids have never really paid attention in the way that they are right now. We can see that just with the numbers and everybody that is actually enthusiastic about what's happening in the White House right now. But I don't know. I look at Vivek and my brain, Steve, it just can't get around the prophet of woe and lamentation. I don't know that he can reach all the way through and grab the Daniel Horowitzes and pull them over. I just don't know that yet. And I wonder if he can't do it, maybe it can't be done, because I know, I can just tell you, that his knowledge of the issues is Daniel Horowitz level of detail. I've seen it. I've had these conversations with him. It is true. It's just you didn't see it for much of last year because you just realized it wasn't going to matter. I'll say this for Vivek. He was right. I was wrong. He saw that the primary was over the day after Trump got indicted on March the 31st. He was right about that and just completely recalibrated himself as trying to essentially ingratiate himself into the social media matrix. And he made the right calculation and look where he's at now. But ultimately, it might win him governor of Ohio. But if he's going to be a successful governor, he's got to marry these two wings that are often at odds. We see it within our own company at times. We see it among our own friends at time on the right. We see it among our followers on the right. These two camps are at odds. If we cannot come up with some way where the policy people understand it's got to be relevant on social media or it's not relevant, and the social media people don't come to a point where they can understand if we cannot actually govern on actual policy, who gives a rip what our engagement farming numbers look like? And I don't know what that looks like, but if we can't bridge that gap, we're not going to be able to govern the country. And Jill is correct, Todd. Then MAGA was just the latest insurgent group, a more successful version of the Tea Party. It won't have lasting tentacles, and we'll wait and see what the next, insurgent brand that tries this all over again is.
This is all pretty meta, and that doesn't mean it's all not worthy of talking about. But ultimately, I just think this is simple. As long as you have a state like Ohio led by the likes of Mike DeWine, and you just saw what happened with an abortion referendum there. What was that? A year ago?
That's 2 years ago.
2 years ago now. I mean, it's drifting to becoming a Republican Party is drifting in the direction of Michigan, which Steve has told you a lot about. So that being said, what other? I'm not an Ohioan. Steve, any other Ohioans of note that aren't of the Mike DeWine? We haven't talked about them.
That's the other thing we're going to find out. How much of the redness of Ohio? I mean, Vivek. Even though you two were always the more skeptical of Vivek, the skeptical version of Vivek is way to the right of the Mike DeWine Republican Party still.
You know what I think about him, but I'm saying, like, who's earned more of a right to try than Vivek has? Mm-hmm. I just think that it's like with Donald Trump. There's reasons why I supported Mike DeSantis. But the damn fools, the Anon-cons sitting around actually, even after watching what's happened for a month and a half, and still like it would be better off if Trump had lost. Really? So you want a Mike DeWine world? Like this is insane. He's earned the right to try. From the perspective and the degree to which Donald Trump has been successful and has actually done things. If he can, in his campaign, tie himself to that and make similar promises, I really think this is just realpolitik. Who else then?
That's my whole point. If he can't do it, who else can? Aaron.
Yeah, so I've said that I want, as much as I hate his guts, because I think he just figured out you can say really bombastic things really cleverly and get a lot of eyeballs, and that's kind of all there is there. I really hope he proves me wrong, because if he proves me wrong, everything that you just talked about there will be realized, and the implications of that are long-lasting. Basically, what we're talking about here, does MAGA have tangible life after a singular figure kind of exits stage left or stage right, whatever it is? Mm-hmm. Do they have legs? We have one example where MAGA can have tangible benefits, tangible power. What I'm talking about, power, wielding power. We do have one example of that. Nobody thinks of Ron DeSantis as MAGA, but he is. I mean, he ran on building the wall. He ran on reading his kids stories about building the wall. He is MAGA. He's the fulfillment of MAGA. We have one example. Yes, it can be very, very, very successful outside of a singular figure. But once is just a one-off. Twice is a coincidence. We need more examples of this. So I want Vivek Ramaswamy to prove everything that I think about him wrong, because as Jill just said a little bit ago, it is undeniable. He is very talented at communicating. Just because he can say things bombastically doesn't mean there's no talent there at all. He is a very talented communicator who happened to light himself on fire over Christmas over the H-1B thing. But other than that, he's done really really well on messaging. So I want to see him, because if he is successful at actually doing the MAGA in Ohio, if he's successful at that, I think the implications, now we have two indications that MAGA can be successful. But in Florida and Ohio, guess what? Two really big states, too.
Yeah.
Two indications that MAGA can be successful tangibly with real power and real results outside of a singular figure. What we're talking about here is a legacy, not just a moment.
Very quickly, I just want to name, that's all we have time for. Exit question. Name someone else who isn't currently a candidate for public office that you'd like to see run for governor of their state. Aaron.
Let's see. Todd Erzin for Iowa.
Todd.
Mom for Liberty, Scarlett Johnson in Wisconsin.
That's an interesting play. Jill, what about you?
I think I'll go with Clay Travis in Tennessee. Good messaging.
That would be a very intriguing campaign. Speaking of which, I am going to change the question, because I think it's even more obvious we're heading towards this after comments that Casey DeSantis just made about an hour ago. Quoting Yogi Berra, if you come to the fork in the road, you take it. Okay? So it looks very much like we are heading towards a Byron Donalds, Casey DeSantis showdown in the GOP Florida governor's race in the primary next year. Do you care? Do you care about this? Aaron, I'll let you go first.
No. I just hope everybody does their best and nobody gets hurt. I have negative integers carrying.
They might do their best.
It's just, listen, this is just going to turn into a never Trump versus Trump proxy fight. I'm sorry.
Correct.
I love the DeSantis.
For a national show like for Floridians, it's very serious.
Yes.
But for a national show like us, you're 100% correct. Jill, go ahead real quick. Is that what you're going to say too?
No, yeah, it's just going to be MAGA versus another DeSantis, and we just play this whole thing out one more time. And like they said, they were crafting the narrative for Casey DeSantis to run forever because they aren't just going through in a political world and just saying, oh, Casey, she's more conservative than Ron for years just to not have her run.
Okay. What do you think?
Yeah, same. I'm just going to repeat what's already been said.
All right. Todd, I'll go right back to you. Predictions, you're first.
Yeah, we're going to find out definitively, and, I already know, but we're going to find out definitively that vaccines cause autism before we find out anything substantive of the Epstein files.
Jill.
After my Lindsey Graham run-in and today's show question, I think I might be okay with retiring the Lindsey Graham scale. I don't know how it could get better from here. I have been the one that has been pushing this, saying I wouldn't.
You have.
Suck it in. Done. Let's vote.
You've been a bad influence on me, Jill. It's your fault.
Scale, I just don't know how it goes up from here.
Yes, it's this woman you gave us on this panel. She has been the bad influence. Yes, Aaron.
We just announced this last night. After
Happily so.
7 years, Marxist madness is coming back, and the field hasn't even been announced yet. But I'm telling you right now, the number one overall seed, I think they'll be fine, but the number one overall seed is already on upset alert, and Todd knows.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Having been a small part of seeing this, yes, this is...
And I didn't plan it that way. That's just how it shook out.
There are some plucky underdogs in this field.
There's parity in this sport, is there? My prediction is once Israel gets back all the hostages it thinks it's going to get back from Hamas, I think you will see Netanyahu on his final act in office launch the offensive of all offenses against Hamas. I think once they think they've gotten all the hostages back Hamas is willing to give them, I think they're going to carpet bomb Dresden. That's what I think is going to happen.
Old Testament style?
I do think that. I think that's where we're headed. And you're going to see the language Trump is using. Israel's going to have to decide what it wants to do. He's clearing he's crowbarring that Overton window right there. Israel's going to have, this isn't acceptable. Israel's going to have to decide. And I think once the Israeli people get back as many of their loved ones as they think they're realistically going to get, I think that you're going to see the Israeli people decide that this just is untenable and cannot go on. Can't happen again. Jill, good to see you as always. Thank you.
Good to see you.
You bet. Hour 2 with one of the greatest pieces of feedback ever to lead off Feedback Friday. Stay tuned. Greetings. We're back with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I'm Steve Deace. Real quick, are you guys seeing these clips coming out of this Zelensky meeting?
No.
Holy crap. Holy crap.
With who?
This is like, I got to go home.
Between Vance, Trump, and Zelensky.
And it's public.
And Vance is just completely mogging
and Trump is just letting him do it.
Yep, they're tag teaming it.
Yeah, and then once Vance gets done, Trump like that. We gave you all those javelins to win the war. What happened? Just said that right to his face. I said I would have given you even more. But what have you been doing with them? I gave you all those. We gave you all those javelins to win the war. I'd give you even more. What are you doing with it? Any of them? What are they doing? Where are they at? Vance looked him right in the eye and said, "If you come into our White House, you diss our government. You wouldn't have a country if it weren't for the American taxpayer." If you said thank you one time. We've talked a lot about things in this business on our side that are just utterly emasculating or going to lead to a lot of disappointing date nights. Let me just tell you right now, Amy, going to be a hot time in the Old Town tonight. Those clips are like Violet walking down Main Street, Bedford Falls. I'm going to go home and see what the wife is doing. All right. I mean, these clips are crazy. Okay. I mean, we've never seen anything like this ever. Maybe this is what I'm sure this kind of stuff goes on behind closed doors, but we have never seen anything like this publicly ever. Just right to his face. All right. Just, we're America, bleep, right to his face. Recognize Recognize. This is, you know what it is too? This is just for dudes. Just talking to the dudes for a second. Although ladies like to listen in to see what we dudes think. When we've talked about we need to reset the order of things, people need to be reminded of the order of things. That we've just been sitting here getting bullied by dweebs. We've been allowing the guys that we had that asked us. We didn't make them carry our gym bags. They asked us if they could. They wanted the honor and distinction of carrying our gym bags. Yeah. And now they're like the ones that are actually like bullying us into silence. This has gone on for too long. This meeting here is cathartic. It's like when I walked out of the Beekeeper movie last year with Jason Statham. It's not a good movie. Holy crap, I could watch it 100 times. All right? It's got a million flaws in terms of its craftsmanship, but just watching him just kill all the way up the Spirit of the Age food chain until he gets to Hillary Clinton for all the people they've ripped off. It's just, I walked out of there literally, I felt like I just took a Slurpee size shot of Ozempic. Okay? I mean, it was like a load was just taken off. It was so cathartic. That's what these clips are, man. I mean, these clips are something else. It's like you're watching the natural order of things being reset.
Yes.
Right in front of us. This is the way it was. This is how this should have gone the entire time. Yes.
Absolutely. What you just said isn't a joke. You just described what every damn school board meeting should have looked like across the fruited plain. Why? It doesn't even matter the issue. Certainly that issue is of vital importance. It's a 1 + 1 = 2 cultural issue. You should have been down there for that. But also, where's your appetite just for going, hey, punk, we're going out to recess, all right? You got out of line. I gave you a job to do. You suck at it. We're restoring order. You didn't want to do that because you had too many other things to do. See, this is an incredibly important point. He's talking about, are you a man or not?
Yes.
That's the question.
Yes.
And you keep saying no.
Trump's like, dude, we gave you the weapons to go beat him. You didn't do it. All right. So whatever other game you're playing here, let me just prolong this thing to get into NATO or, whatever. We're not in. We're not in. Enough people have died. Time for this thing to end. Right to his face on camera.
Hold on. Do you hear that? Listen. I can hear thousands of neocons spontaneously combusting as we speak.
Yes, a disturbance in the force. Yes.
Well, sign of life check for David French, please.
Yeah. Yes. Someone do a wellness check over there at National Review to make sure everybody's still all right. Yes. Where were we? Let us know. I just had to get to that right away. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. You can do so by emailing us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok, please. Also, don't forget, if we have a new YouTube channel, if you have yet to subscribe there, please do so. We need all the help with that we can possibly get. All right. I don't know. And just so you guys know, I'm still in touch with our constitutional attorney. Maybe some news on that here, potentially, soon. Because I just don't think any show has been more uniquely crushed in terms of video engagement on various platforms than this show has been. Aaron, you'd know this better than me. I asked some of the management at the Blaze about this when I was down in Dallas this week. They agreed with me. I doubt there's another show of our magnitude whose video engagement numbers are as bad as ours. And it all goes back to COVID. Yeah. It all goes back to that.
Yeah.
Because there were plenty of other people that were part of the resistance, but there were few shows on a platform as large as this one doing that. A lot of people's platforms grew because they were doing that work, but there were very few shows on an existing platform this big that were doing the COVID resistance that we were doing. That's why guys like Jay Bhattacharya and Scott Atlas and and Peter McCullough and Robert Malone started coming to the show to get their message out. And now a lot of those guys, God bless them, and I love that. They're now everywhere. Their platforms are bigger than mine, and I'm all for that because they're literally doing the Lord's work, man. Okay, but there were very few platforms in our neighborhood in terms of size that were leading the way on that. And many of them were smaller platforms than ours. And we have been uniquely destroyed. And so I'm going to see if maybe somebody could be held accountable for that. But in the meantime, if you could help us and subscribe at Deace Show on YouTube, at Deace Show on YouTube. All right. And then finally, if you dig the podcast, thank you very much. Leave us a 5-star review if you haven't yet done so. If you already did, thank you. And then you can hit subscribe, or if you're on iTunes, follow. That way, every time we do a new episode, it shows up there in your feed every single time. So I've been working in it when I can. Our partners over at Beam, and I just drank some more last night. Man, I got a great night's sleep again last night with Beam. This stuff is really good, man. So how would you define how your sleep is going right now? Are there challenges falling asleep, maybe staying asleep? How about the quality of sleep? Because that can really impact your quality of life as well. Maybe you've tried other sleep supplements out there, but nothing has really worked. All right, listen, keep trying, because when you sleep well, your minds and bodies, particularly as we get older, perform at their best. It's just key to both good mental and physical health, a good night's sleep. And so that's where Beam comes in. All right, it's this bedtime essential. It's totally guilt-free, delicious cocoa. There's sea salt caramel, brownie batter, vanilla chai, the original Beam Dream Powder. I'm doing the chocolate peanut butter. Is my thing, because I love chocolate and peanut butter. So that's the one that I've been trying at night. And I know what you're thinking, dude. The last thing I need is drink a bunch of sugar. I'm trying to lose pounds. Don't need to drink a bunch of sugar before bed. Only 15 calories, 0 grams of sugar. Okay, so it tastes great. It works great. If you want to try it today, get Beam's best-selling Dream Powder up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to Shop Beam, BEAM, like laser beam. shopbeam.com/Steve. Use the code Steve at checkout. Shopbeam.com/Steve. Use the code Steve at checkout for up to 40% off. That's a big discount, up to 40% off with the code Steve at shopbeam.com/Steve. All right, man. Are you guys ready for this? This is one of the greatest pieces of feedback I have received in my career. Therefore, in the history of the show, because I'm the only person that's been here for like every show. So, all right.
There's a high bar.
It is a pretty high bar.
See.
Okay. One of our listeners, Charles, this is incredible. We might spend the entire first segment on just this. And I got to give him a shout out. Charles Crispell is his name. Full name. I got to give you a shout out, brother, because this was awesome. Charles Crispell went to Grok 3 on X.
Oh, God.
Are you ready for this? And asked Elon Musk's AI, right now, probably the most powerful public AI unit on planet Earth right now, maybe, Aaron?
Probably.
Probably. Yeah. Okay. Asks Grok's AI, Grok 3, what if Steve Deace was president of the United States, Todd Erzin was vice president, and Aaron McIntyre was secretary of state? All right.
Uh-oh.
That might have been the first thing actually Grok said. All right. Oh, yes. All right, so what if I were president and Todd, you were VP, and Aaron, you were secretary of state? So what if I'm Trump, you're JD, and you're Rubio, all right, in the current lineup, all right? I'm just going to read what Grok says.
Aaron doesn't like to leave the house. He doesn't. That's going to be tough for a secretary
That's true,
of
all
state.
that foreign gallivanting around. Yeah, more like Secretary of the Interior for Aaron, correct? Yes. Homeland Security, perhaps?
Yes. Point of order.
Yes.
How many people on this year this year's show has taken not one but 2 solo trips driving himself out to the Grand Canyon and back?
Very true. That's true. But that was also
Shut your face, Erzin.
That was before you were married too, right? Yeah. Right. All right. So here's what Grok said. Ready? Imagining Steve Deace as president and Todd Erzin as vice president is an exercise in speculative fiction, rooted in their public personas and as outspoken conservative commentators at Blaze Media. Both are known for their strong Christian values, skepticism of establishment narratives, critiques of bureaucracy, media, and progressive policies. It's pretty accurate so far, right?
Sure.
Okay. And so Grok says, here's what their administration might look like based on their stated beliefs and styles. Deace, as president, would likely prioritize a return to what he sees as foundational American principles: limited government, individual liberty, and the Judeo-Christian moral framework. He's a fierce critic of what he calls Fauciism. That's the outsourcing of leadership to unelected bureaucrats. So expect him to dismantle agencies or slash their influence, especially when it comes to health and education. His foreign policy might lean isolationist, focusing on American first without the bombast of a Trump, but with a sharper ideological edge. Think Ted Cruz's 2016 campaign, which Deace supported, minus the party loyalty. I got to be honest. So far, this is pretty accurate, man. He'd probably push for constitutional amendments or executive orders to curb judicial overreach, given his role in ousting Iowa Supreme Court justices over same-sex marriage. Grok has done its homework, man. Now, the one thing is, I would push for those things, but I would also just be ignoring judicial orders. I mean, we just wouldn't go by them. If they didn't say what I thought the Constitution clearly said, we just wouldn't do those things. And I just tell the voters, hey, if you want anti-constitutional government, you can vote me out next time, or put people in power next midterm that'll impeach me, and you can have your say. You elected me to have mine. Here's mine. You can now have yours, whether you like it or not. That's kind of how I'd roll. His rhetoric, though, would be unrelenting. Deace doesn't pull punches. His books like Fauci and Bargain and Rise of the Fourth Reich show a flair for dramatic confrontational framing. I'm starting to think Grok's going to ask me out, all right? Is it gay if it's an AI, guys? Can I get a ruling on this? Is it gay if it's an AI? Is it still gay? Gay? Yes? Todd, your thoughts? I'm kidding.
We are going to talk about this, though.
Okay. Cabinet meetings might feel like a live podcast with Deace dissecting opponents' worldviews in real time. He'd likely clash with Congress, even a Republican one, over their swamp creature tendencies, and his veto pen would get a workout. Indeed. Buy stock in BIC. All right? Buy stock in BIC. The media, he'd treat them as an enemy combatant, bypassing them. Listen, I'm in a contract negotiation, guys, this year. I might just send this over at this point, all right? Guys, here's my counteroffer.
I dare you to do better.
Tyler and Gaston, if you are listening, my counteroffer is this right here. I'm just sending this over, all right? And yes, I dare you to do better. Match that.
The Oracle has spoken.
That's correct. All right? Recognize. Yes. The media he'd treat as an enemy combatant, bypassing them for Blaze-style platforms to speak directly to his base. So far, man, this thing on me has just nailed it. That's what it said about me. Are we good so far? Any comment on this so far, on the me part? You're next, Todd.
Yeah. I think it is nuanced and detailed. Yeah, once we get to me and the walnut whores, I'm sure things might go sideways a bit.
It's reference. Aaron, you good with this?
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is cash money, man. Cash money with a C. All right, Todd. Todd Erzin as VP would be the loyal enforcer, amplifying Deace's agenda with his own blunt, populist touch. Erzin's Black Mirror Oracle persona suggests a knack for dark dystopian warning.
Yes. My God. That's my tombstone. Thank you. Thank you.
This is incredible. This is incredible. All right. He'd be the guy rallying the heartland with quips about cultural decay and government overreach. He'd probably take point on social issues like opposing transing the kids, a phrase from their show, pushing for parental rights, and maybe even reviving his old sports reporter energy to connect with everyday Americans. I think they got you and I conflated on that as sports reporters, but you were also a reporter, right?
Well, no, early on. I did sports reporting right at the beginning.
All right, I must have forgot that. My bad.
It was a year, yeah.
All right, less polished than Deace, he'd be the administration's emotional pulse. That's a nice way of saying he's crazier than Deace.
Again, thank you.
He's essentially the heat check. All right. Less concerned with diplomacy than with firing up the faithful. Their dynamic would be tight-knit, forged from years of on-air chemistry, but Deace would dominate the vision while Erzin plays the pit bull. Policy-wise, expect a hard pivot against COVID-era precedents. Lockdowns and mandates would be anathema. They'd likely champion states' rights, pointing to Florida's DeSantis as a model. Economically, they'd push deregulation and tax cuts, though Deace's disdain for corporate cronies might spark tension with big business. On immigration, they'd be hawkish, emphasizing sovereignty over compassion. The vibe? You guys ready for this? The vibe, intense, polarizing, and unapologetic.
That's like our holy trinity. Nice.
To quote Paris Hilton, that's hot. All right, that's hot. Allies would call it a principled stand against tyranny. Critics would see it as dogmatic and divisive. Their base, conservative Christians, libertarians, and anti-establishment types, would eat it up, while urban coasts and moderates would recoil. Impeachment attempts would be perennial. I love that.
Perennial.
This year's impeachment. It's impeachment season for President Deace. Yes. Who's on the mound for this impeachment season? Throwing out the first pitch. Who cast the first vote this impeachment season? Oh my gosh. This is one of the biggest ego boosts of my entire life. I'm going to be honest with you. All right. Straight up. I think I've got more hair on my chest just reading this. Fueled by Deace's refusal, these impeachment attempts would be fueled by Deace's refusal to compromise and Erzin's knack for inflammatory sound bites.
Knack?
Aaron, Erzin's first, instead of the Munich conference for JD, Erzin's first VP speech is the Hawk to a Bible study. That's the first thing he does.
Gosh.
Okay. All right. Whether they succeed,
only if I'm lucky.
I love this part too. Whether they succeed depends on how much chaos the system can take before bending or breaking. This is, of course, a thought experiment. Neither is run for office, and governing's messier than punditry. But based on their track record, it would be a wild, values-driven ride. This is incredible. All right, Todd, your thoughts on the section that pertains here to you?
Well, wow. I did not expect. It leapt over to the bar, Steve. You did not oversell that.
No, it's incredible. It's incredible, and it's fairly accurate of what it would be like, whether it be successful, whether it would work. That's very much up for debate. But this is what it would be like. Yeah,
I'm actually, and in the detail and the nuance, one important thing. I mean, all the stuff I stand absolutely that applies specifically to me uniquely. But the one thing it did talk about relationally between what it would be, it actually gets the show. Because when it talked about my loyalty to the agenda set by Steve, that's the show too. That's what Steve says all the time, and be loyal to your one of the commandments of the book. Be loyal to your base unless they
never betray your base unless they're morally wrong. Yeah,
it's the same thing. It's gosh. I mean, it's an honor to work for him on this show, let alone if we were given all the levers of power and our commitment to one another to be uncompromising in doing it. I found that refreshing that it actually spoke about that degree of loyalty, because that is actually what I view one of my fundamental roles in this show is all about, to help him do what he does at the level. This is it providentially what he talked about. The heat we took because of what we did in COVID, and still take, not heat, but consequences, we still take, while others watched and basically used us as the canary in the coal mine. Well, let's see if they go down there and what they come up with, and maybe they'll die and maybe they'll live. All kinds of people continue to flourish to this day more than we flourished, because even though we were successful in terms of ultimately bringing light to it, we still took the slings and arrows for that thing. But it was one of the great honors of my professional life, if not the great honor. So I'd like to do that again.
What do you think, Aaron?
Just disappointed that he never called a tree a whore.
Like I said, that clearly was an oversight.
Yes. All right, you ready for you, brother? You ready?
Yes.
All right. Aaron McIntyre as Secretary of State to a hypothetical Deace presidency with Erzin as VP creates an intriguing dynamic, given their established rapport from the show on Blaze Media. McIntyre, the show's producer, is known for his sharp wit, organizational skills, and alignment with Deace and Erzin's conservative Christian worldview. So here's how this might play out. You okay with this so far?
Yeah. I'm a little uncomfortable about how much Grok likes me, though.
It does. It did the last time we did this too. Yeah. All right. As Secretary of State, McIntyre would bring the same no-nonsense, skeptical energy he displays on air to U.S. foreign policy. Deace's likely isolationist streak, focused on America first without global overreach, would find a willing executor in McIntyre. Expect a foreign policy heavy on sovereignty, with little patience for multinational bodies like the UN or NATO unless they directly serve U.S. interests. That sounds hot. McIntyre's role on the show suggests he's adept at translating big ideas into actionable steps, so he'd likely streamline the State Department, cutting what he'd call bureaucratic fat and prioritizing bilateral deals over sprawling alliances. His on-air persona hits at a diplomatic style that's blunt and unpolished. Think less John Kerry, more Mike Pompeo, but with a sarcastic edge. He'd probably relish dismantling what he and Deace have critiqued as globalist frameworks, like endless Middle East engagements or climate accords. Picture him at a summit calling out European leaders for virtue signaling while pushing trade terms favoring American workers. They're basically just saying you're J.D. Vance. Aaron.
Hey, I'm good with that.
That's essentially what that is saying.
After today, I'm about to endorse him for 2028.
His lack of traditional diplomatic experience, he's a radio producer, not a career politician, could either refresh U.S. posture, cutting through diplomatic jargon, or ruffle feathers, risking alienation of allies. With Deace and Erzin already a tight ideological unit, McIntyre as Secretary of State completes a triumvirate of power. It's a nice use of that term, going back to ancient Rome days. Their chemistry would ensure a unified front. Deace sets the vision. Erzin rallies the base. McIntyre executes abroad. And the vision, limited government, moral clarity. Aaron rallies, or Todd rallies the base with populist fire. And McIntyre executes the vision with pragmatic skepticism. They'd likely coordinate tightly, bypassing the usual DC leaks and infighting, though McIntyre's quips might slip out in press briefings, stirring headlines. Aaron looks at Zelensky, learning Chinese today. Okay, yes. Learning the dark tongue of Mordor today. Yes, just to complete straight edge, like with unironically says things like that. Yes. Challenges. McIntyre's inexperience could stumble in crises like a Taiwan Strait flare-up or a Russian escalation where seasoned nuance matters. His loyalty to Deace might also make him an echo chamber, reinforcing rather than challenging the president's instincts. Now, this is one area where I would disagree with Grok, is internally, you guys are able to question, challenge. Yeah, I was going to do something, I think, on the show just a week or two ago. You guys told me not to do it, so I didn't do it. All right. So, I mean, a unified vision is not the same thing as an echo chamber. Those are two different things.
Yeah, and I just want to say a unified vision is not the same as an echo chamber. That's two different things.
There it is. Now the press room is just like, that guy's weird.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. In fact, you know what? The alternative media can go ahead and they can take our place. We don't want to come back. Yes. It's really creepy.
I disagree about him not being like sudden flare-ups. This whole show is a sudden flare-up.
That's pretty much what it is.
The Starship Enterprise over there, he's keeping that together with duct tape. Occasionally, we have to get up out of our chairs to kill a horde of wasps. We know how to stay on our toes in this show.
Grok concludes the Aaron analysis sarcasm while a hit on the air might bomb in delicate negotiations. The vibe would be a foreign policy that's lean, confrontational, unapologetically American-centric, mirroring their show's ethos. Allies would have to adapt to a U.S. that cares less about feelings and more about results. Adversaries would face a State Department that doesn't blink. It'd be a grand experiment in turning podcast principles into global power, bold, divisive, and anything but conventional.
I'll allow it. My first state visit will be to Antarctica.
Why Antarctica?
Just to figure out what they're hiding.
No, see what's there? Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah.
Where's McIntyre? Antarctica. Okay.
This is incredible.
Can I ask a serious question?
Yeah.
The level of detail, nuance, it's absolutely over the target. But in my experience, the only thing Grok and AI is used for is to ask questions like, how do my farts smell, and how do I look if I was a gladiator, and what if Deace and Erzin were what is this? Is this stuff being used for like stuff that we were entertained?
Yeah.
But I got to know because I actually have my predictions of the last 2 years. In our end of the year show, AI's coming take over beyond my understanding of all things, everything. Like, what is this being used for seriously?
You could come up everything.
Yes.
Okay, but
this is a 3D printer of thought. I mean, people are usually
that's a great analogy.
They're creating proprietary video games with this.
See, again,
but my point is,
what are they using it for seriously?
In terms of the ability to, I mean, it's not. They're not. Grok isn't coming back with the code. It's coming back with the gameplay. You see what that's what I was trying to say. It's translating like a 3D printer. It's bringing things to life.
But
I've seen people come up with their own treatment plans. Hey, I don't trust my doctor. What's the latest data on this? What would I've seen treatment plans done. I mean, literally,
okay.
I mean, it's a 3D printer of intellectual thought is what it is. Which is both weird and scary to me.
Well,
I mean, it has great potential. But holy crap, man! Put this in the hands of a godless society, and Skynet adapts. Okay, but you know what? That was also true of Literally everything. That was true of the internet. That was true of these bad boys. That was true of television. That was true of radio. That was true of any form of mass communication, that whatsoever, mass dissemination of information whatsoever. In the hands of a godless society, it'll put you literally at the ash heap of history and the stuff of science fiction books. But
also, it's the reason we have a godless society in many respects, because it's doing that. I find it I did not expect. I expected something far more related to caricature. Even when it was funny and bombastic as applied to some of my, it's all true to me. It is who I am.
Yeah.
And it's what I try to be, and it got it.
It nailed our entire show. I mean, it nailed the whole thing, which is very flattering, but also I mean, Rod Serling, you're always 10 minutes away, okay, from, the next stage in societal small E evolution, or Rod Serling, okay? Or for this generation, as you like to quote, Black Mirror, right? I mean, it comes down to, are these innovations, worldview is destiny. Worldview is destiny. So when the Nazis are attempting to come up with an atomic bomb, all right, we look at it totally different than when our country does. What's the difference? Why we had to do?
We're not Nazis.
We're not Nazis. We have a worldview difference. That's the difference. Same technology.
Yes.
Worldview difference.
Yes.
Okay, and so that's the thing. Whose hands will this be placed in? Who's going to wield these weapons? This is a weapon of mass destruction. Just in a war, an information war, an ideological war. Who's going to wield that? What's the worldview of those wielding it? That's the key. Musk has said that he wants Grok to search for truth. I tested Grok last week. I think I sent you guys a couple of graphics on just a couple of theological questions to see what it would say. Okay. Mm-hmm. I was fascinated with how well it reasoned its answers. Whether you thought it was right or not. I mean, the level of reasoning, it clearly wrestled with the theological questions that I asked it. Okay. That can be a tremendous tool, provided the people with the right worldview are the ones wielding it.
That was an exact conversation I had with Grok. Conversation in air quotes I had with Grok. How can you be sure you're neutral when your programmers have a bias themselves? That was the gist of the conversation.
Yeah.
And I got Grok to admit that it's not unbiased.
By the way, Melissa says on the Zelensky stuff, hey, there's a cheat code as well. Seeing a real man pimp slap a little dweeb does it for us too. So there you go. All right, more of your feedback here when we come back. Stay tuned. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show. Don't forget, we've got wall-to-wall coverage of Trump's, when the president takes over, it's the State of the Union address, but you're not supposed to call it the State of the Union address in its first year for some odd reason. It's the speech to the joint session of Congress. You can't. Why do we do that?
What?
It's been that way forever. Do you know why we just don't call it a State of the Union address? Do you guys know?
I have no idea. I didn't even.
But yeah, in the first year, you don't call it like a State of the Union. It's a speech to the joint session of Congress because it comes like a month later than the State of the Union does. I don't know why we do that.
Okay.
It's like your favorite sport, baseball, and the unwritten rules. We just do that.
Nate Bargatze. This United States of America, the new president, every year will address a joint session of Congress, and we'll call it the State of the Union. Except for in his first year. We're just going to call it an address to the joint session of Congress.
Yes, pretty much. Why?
No one knows.
No one knows, but we will just do that. Yes, great analogy there, Aaron. So that means, by the way, I'm going back to Dallas. I leave on Monday night right after the show because I'm going to be down there helping with that coverage with Glenn and the team. All right, so if you want to watch the historic address, President Trump, like MacArthur, returning to the Philippines. All right, coverage begins at 7:30 Eastern on Tuesday, March 4th. All right, we're going to have pre-speech coverage, post-speech coverage. Yours truly will be a part of it there. Starting at 7:30 Eastern on Tuesday, March 4th. Set your reminders now. Join me and other Blaze TV hosts live. One speech you do not want to miss coming up here on Blaze TV and YouTube, 7:30 Eastern The pre-speech festivities begin Tuesday, March 4th. We're all heading back down to Dallas. So looking forward to that. All right, you guys ready for some more Feedback Friday?
Well, only if it's artificial intelligences that want to say how great we are. Other than that, I don't know.
You know what? We had to take the entire segment because having someone else follow that up was just unfair. There needed to be a palate cleanser called a commercial break, and now we can just get back to normal, okay? Rebecca writes, my husband and I, I forgot to segue this. The amount of reaction we got to the Rush Limbaugh tribute we did on Tuesday of this week was phenomenal. And just so many people sharing just so many memories about how influential and impactful Rush was in their lives. And I could have done the entire feedback. I could have done a couple of Feedback Fridays just reading those notes. But I chose just to take a couple to kind of, I chose 3 to kind of summarize the various thoughts out there. Okay. So Rebecca, back to her again. She says, my husband and I were on a trip when he was trying to find a channel on AM radio that would pick up any kind of conservative radio program. And that one day he found Rush, and I was hooked from that moment on. And one of the things that impressed me about Rush was his ability to not only connect to adults who listen to him, but to children as well. It amazed me the number of children, one as young as 8 years old, who listened to Rush and called in from time to time. Many of them spoke about reading and rereading multiple times his Rush Revere books. I remember one young girl who called in and said that she was homeschooled. She said that after reading that series, her family had decided to travel to all of the historic landmarks in that book series. Rush was absolutely floored by that when the pandemic hit in 2020, and I got a call from my daughter saying that schools were closing. One of the first things I did was order the entire book series for my 3 oldest grandkids and had them shipped to their homes. I knew it would be hard for them to be stuck at home and wanted to give them something to do with their time, because that's what Rush did. He didn't just entertain, but also educated us. So thank you guys very much for a great perspective from his brother David. It was truly heartfelt in every way. What's next here? Gary Schmidt says, that show was spellbinding. I grew up in Pittsburgh listening to KQV and Jeff Christie. You might be like, who's Jeff Christie? If you listen to AM to FM music radio in the 70s, I think every market might have had a Jeff Christie. That's a classic DJ moniker, okay? And that was one that Rush Limbaugh used back in the day on KQV in Pittsburgh. And Gary says our Tuesday show was a sweet walk down memory lane, reliving the times of our lives. Thank you guys so very much. And then finally, Pat, I can't thank you guys enough for the special edition show talking to David Limbaugh about our angel now, the great Rush Limbaugh. I cried when he passed, of which I'd never cried before about any kind of media person or radio host. Rush was number one with me, and I miss that man beyond words. I'm sure he's entertaining the angels in heaven, so thanks again for the awesome interview with David, who is also, in his own right, an exceptional writer, and he is. That should not be understated. And you know what? Let me tell you who doesn't get enough credit in that relationship, frankly, is David. It can be really hard, man, when your older brother makes it big. And it's not like you're chopped liver, man. You went to law school and everything else, right? But there's just never even a hint of that. I mean, Rush turning to his younger brother to negotiate his first radio deal indicates, again, just the relationship between those two men. And David is a prolific writer. I mean, he's got 5 or 6 books that have been on the New York Times bestseller list. I mean, David's among the most successful conservative writers of this era in the nonfiction genre. And just like kind of we've dabbled both in politics and theology, he's done that too. I mean, he's had best-selling, books on the bestseller list, for just, your good old-fashioned red meat right-wing polemic. And then he's done an incredible, work on apologetics of the Christian faith as well. So he has his own legacy, and he's never out there saying, guys, remember me? I kind of, I'm smart. I can do stuff. He's not Fredoing it out there at all. If anything, you could accuse David of maybe being almost, if you wanted to accuse him of anything, I wouldn't. But he would definitely be, if you follow him in his work at all, he errs way more on the side of not letting his brother's legacy go than he does on, competing with it, or, well, what about my niche? And hey, I've been successful too. I mean, you just don't, it's a rarity, man. And it's not just a rarity in this era, in any era. I mean, the first murder in the history of the world happened between 2 brothers, right? That testosterone gets going, that competitive edge gets going. That's not always the easiest thing to manage between those two. And so that's a unique relationship between those 2 men, even in the best of eras. Matt Barini writes, greetings from Brazil. By the way, have you guys been to a Brazilian steakhouse? It looks, I haven't gone to one, but it sounds like something I would like.
No, it definitely
I've had
sounds like something.
Brazilian barbecue many times.
And
it
lived
really
up,
good.
It was really good? Okay. Just total aside. Sorry, Matt. Didn't mean to hijack your thread. Okay. Just Brazil doesn't come up in a conversation very often. And that made me think of that. All right. Matt says, greetings from Brazil. I must say that before entering the subject at hand, some time ago, I saw various national influencers talking about your movie in Nefarious, and I thought that was very neat. So did I, because it sold us a lot of tickets. I thought it was very neat too. Yes. Now, maybe it's because I'm kind of new to your show. I've been listening since 22, but I've never necessarily heard the definition of what constitutes Western civilization. So my question is, what is that? And what countries are part of it? How would you define it? Excellent question, actually. Matt, Western civilization is often associated with countries within the Western Hemisphere geographically, but that's not really. That's because much of the worldview that Western civilization is known for was firmly rooted in those countries. But it's not really unique to any particular region of the world, because the original term for Western civilization was Christendom. And the reason why it's often been associated with the Western Hemisphere is because Christianity's greatest original growth came out of the Roman Empire, both with the first era of the apostles, who were Judeans or Jews, and therefore under the authority of the Roman Empire. The places that they went to that have letters named after them all throughout the New Testament. Okay. In many cases were provinces of the Greco-Roman, I think maybe in every case, were provinces of the Greco-Roman Empire, or in the book of Romans case, the Rome itself. Okay. And so since this is where and why did God have Christianity start there? Because it was literally the center of culture in the entire world. The Greco-Roman world was the first time since the Tower of Babel that much of the human population was united by a singular set of customs, languages, and values, and legal rights. Not to mention the Romans also did things that had never occurred in human history. They up until that point, their civil engineers created kind of proto forms of what we call today asphalt or concrete. They paved. Now, this would be very primitive pavement by our standards, but, in the ancient world, this was a wonder. Paved roads, okay? And then because of their dominance, their military dominance, the amount of barbarism that existed on what was mass transit in that era, the seaways, the amount of danger associated with average people going along the seaways was still a very dangerous pursuit, but you weren't literally taking your life in your own hands other than the weather. They kept, barbarians and robbers and scavengers at bay because they ruled the seaways at the exact same time. So this is really the first time in the first place in the world since Babel that if you wanted to get a mass message out to the entire planet, this is the first time in place in human societal small evolution where that was possible. And so that is why God sovereignly chose to have it start right there. Okay. And so since Rome is in the heart of Western Europe, some of the countries it conquered were called Britannia. You might know it today as England. Gaul, you might know it today as France. All right. They had conquered all these countries. And then eventually Christianity ended up conquering the Roman Empire. And then that was infused into all these Western European countries. So, yes, it's often associated with nations in the Western Hemisphere, but that's because that is where the worldview was originally given birth to. And before it was called Western civilization, it was known as Christendom. That's what it was known as. But there are plenty of Christian influences all throughout the world, and you're native Brazil. You see isn't that where they have the massive statue of Christ with his arms open? Isn't that in
Rio de
Brazil?
Janeiro.
That's what I thought. Yeah. So those values, by the way, are eternal and universal. So they can take root anywhere in the world, provided they have a proper understanding of the source of said values. Like you couldn't take those values and remove Christ from them. Wouldn't work. Might for a bit, you might get people to say out of common sense, these are better values, it makes sense, but eventually our sinfulness would overcome us. And that's by the way why we're running from those values in the West now. Because in many cases we're Christless in the West now. We're godless. And this is also why some other parts of the world now that were foreign to Western civilization, but the establishment of Christendom within their cultures is newer, tend to be places where they're more prone to actually hold on to Western values than the Western countries. Think that one scene in Matt Walsh's What's a Woman? Where he goes to that tribe there in Africa that's been greatly influenced by Christianity, but they're an African tribe, and he says, "Hey, what do you guys think?" And they think we're a bunch of nitwits, right? All right. It's been a long time since we referenced this, but when the Episcopalian Church went apostate for the first time, when there was an attempt to save that denomination, it's kind of ironic. It's largely been associated that denomination has been with white Anglo-Saxon Protestantism. They actually tried to go to Africa and import black priests into the church, into the denomination to try to save it, because they hadn't been completely worked over by the spirit of the age yet, and actually believed more in Western civilization, even though they don't necessarily live there. They believed more in the values that made and framed Western civilization than the West did. All right, so they're uniquely located because they come out of Christianity's influence in ancient Rome, but these are eternal values. All beings made in the likeness and image of God could absorb and embrace these values and ideologies, but to do so fully means they have to embrace the source of them, and that's Christ. You guys want to add anything to that?
Well, it's a great failure of our American educational system that making sure every American can answer that question adequately isn't accomplished. And not only not accomplished, like the wrong answer is like purposely taught to you. It's a vital question. People ask like it's a dusty question of history. Mm-hmm. It's the most important secular lesson. I mean, and obvious. The answer of Christ is within there, but learning it from just a broad educational it doesn't matter even if you're a pagan. You should understand that because it's the truth. It's what made the level of human flourishing possible. And also, if we think about what diversity is in the best possible terms, it made that possible too, for various reasons, reasons of the mind, reasons of the heart, reasons of mercy. All of the great truths and their flourishing come out of a base understanding of the question that Steve just asked.
Amen. And I mean, I'm just following along, this hour, the developments at the White House today, and Trump basically kicked out Zelensky he's kicked him out of the White House. Said, "Come back when you're ready for peace." That's pretty badass. But I'm watching all of these neocons, as I said earlier, just completely light themselves on fire, or really just spontaneously combust, because this is what was done today is totally antithetical to their worldview. And I saw one commentator say, "This will surely have negative consequences for America and her allies, strategic allies." Who are our friends?
Correct.
Anyway,
Correct.
Who are our friends? Mm-hmm. From your worldview, Mr. Neocon commentator, from the people, for the circles that you run with, you do see other people in other Western countries as your allies, because the people that you see look a lot, think a lot, and have a lot of the same investments that you do. When it comes to the rest of humanity here and flyover country and the rest of the country, we see these things as very different. This is kind of a key, tangentially related to what we're talking about, a key worldview conversation. Who actually are our friends, and what is this country? Are our friends just the elites in other countries and their interests, or is it the interests of our people? This country was founded by we the what? People. We the elitists? The elite had the biggest hand. The lives, fortunes, and sacred honors, they had the biggest hand in helping it. But ultimately, the Constitution was for we the people. This worldview has absolutely, of our elites, has absolutely devolved now. And I think we're seeing that playing out every single day.
Amen. The reality is I have nothing in common with the World Economic Forum and that ilk, which is much of countries in the Western Hemisphere now. I have nothing in common with them other than we both have the same low levels of melanin in our skin. That's literally the only thing they have in common. Nothing else. I mean, nothing else. Nothing. I just don't want the same things. My definition of what's good, true, and beautiful for the human being has nothing in common with the current head of the United Kingdom at all. Nothing. Yes. Zero. Zip, zilch, nada. Nothing. Nothing. Literally nothing. Literally nothing. We both just have low levels of melanin in our skin. That's it. There's nothing else. What's this guy's name? Sturmer or something? I've got nothing else in common with him other than that. Well, you know what? We both speak English fluently. Okay. We both speak English fluently and we lack melanin in our skin. I have nothing else in common. I've got more in common with Matt in Brazil. There you go. All right, everybody. Hope you had a great week. We're back on Monday. Have a great weekend as well. We'll see you then. All right, until then, Romans 8:28.